For many years, a part of the Catalan population felt as if they did not belong to the Spanish state. Due to historical and cultural reasons, this feeling of not belonging grew and grew till what we know now as Catalan independentists. Back in the 1400s, Cataluña used to be part of the Crown of Aragon, but when this one united to the Crown of Castilla, a broad territory that would be later determined as the Crown of Spain was created. Catalan language has been around for a long time, with the first Catalan evidence of writing dating back to the 9th century. It wasn't until Franco came into power that the feeling of not belonging grew vastly. Since Franco's death, as well as the constitution being written, the independentist movement has grown to the point where almost 50% of the Catalan population feels they should be independent. Being the region with the most powerful GDP in the whole of Spain, Catalans believe that being independent would actually make them better off, as they feel the Spanish state takes profit from their high earnings. Moreover, the overall independence movement comes from the claim that Cataluña has enough autonomy to become its own separate state. The real independentist movement started around 2008 with the claim to do self-determination referendum, which later took place in 2014. Artur Mas is one of the main orchestrators of the Catalan independence movement, who promoted the movement around the whole Catalunya and was sanctioned without being allowed to have political power because of it. Carles Puigdemont was the president of the Generalitat who carried out the Catalan referendum for independence in 2017. In this video, we will analyze the different consequences of this referendum on Catalunya. This is an especially difficult matter because nobody really knows the real consequences of this referendum, as it is too recent to determine. Following the macroeconomic theories studied in class, we will make the most accurate prediction on what has happened for Catalunya.
The economic consequences for Catalunya if it were to become independent are numerous and disastrous. Due to the mounting fear of independence of Catalunya succeeding in their independence, more than 1,500 companies have left the area as they will not be able to benefit from the EU or being regulated by the European Central Bank and the Banking Union. Firms have moved out of their headquarters and tax offices, which leads to our first issue on how Catalunya will provide for public services, as with independence they could be in a state of corralito, where just like in Greece, from the 2008 financial crisis, Catalan people will only be able to take a certain amount of money every day. In addition, as Catalunya is experiencing a drainage of firms from the area, they will be receiving less tax revenue, making it even harder for the government to provide public services as the deficit increases. Furthermore, as independence would cast Catalunya out of the EU, resulting in Catalunya losing many advantages. It is estimated that Catalunya's GDP will decrease by 20%, and the civil Catalan society estimates a loss of 447,000 jobs, which would account for a 34.4% unemployment rate. Catalonia will also miss out on a deal where the European Union would give to Catalonia 1,400 million worth of structural funds between 2014 and 2020, which would help with the large deficit in Catalan pensions and in territorial social security. In fact, the hypothetical case of an independent Catalonia would cause a social security deficit of nearly 5 million euros in the community, and could even reach 5.5 million deficit by 2022. If Catalonia were to be left out of the EU, they would lose much potential revenue, as they will not be able to benefit from the EU's free trade area. This would have grave outcomes for Catalonia, as the European Union contributes to 70% of foreign investment in Catalonia and 65% of its exports. The loss of these benefits would leave Catalonia crippled, as they would see many industries harmed, jobs leaving the areas and revenues lost. Finally, the main issue and most significant economic issue Catalonia would have to face is what currency it would have to use when it would become independent. Catalonia would likely not be able to use the euro, as once it has independence, it will be annexed from the Eurozone and its treaties won't apply anymore. In order to get back into the EU, Catalonia will need to meet many conditions, such as having a national debt below 60% of gross national product. Catalonia would likely have an extremely weak currency, making imports very expensive, and there are now cheaper exports left outside of the preferable trade deals from the EU.
One of the main consequences of Cataluña's move to independence on the 1st of October is the outflow of companies from Cataluña's economy. According to Expansión, since the last 1st of October, 2,907 companies had moved away their headquarters from Cataluña territory to another region in Spain. The movement for independence passed by the Cataluña Parliament has abolished the economic stability that these companies used to rely on. The determination of independence passed by the Parliament gave an uncertain future in the monetary and fiscal situation. Not only did the uncertainty of the policies provoke a huge outflow for companies, but the loss of capital due to customer awareness about the uncertain situation, especially reliable to banks, which suffer a massive loss of capital. In other words, uncertainty is bad for the business. Unknowing which monetary and fiscal policies can be applied, how possible creation of new barrier duties can affect the business, is something that creates a willingness to leave. And how does this affect the Catalunya economy? Especially, how does this affect the GDP? From the 2,907 companies that have already changed their headquarters, we can identify 62 main companies, such as Abertis, that have changed the location out of Catalunya territory. According to Expansión data analysts, they determine that this change has influenced negatively the Catalan economy by 11,540 million euros in direct effect of the Catalan GDP. In other words, a loss of 5.4% of the Catalan GDP and 1% loss of the total Spanish GDP. When analyzing this outflow, it's important to distinguish between the change of headquarters and the change in tax residence. From the 2,907 companies that have changed their headquarters, only 1,000 of them have changed their tax residence.
Barcelona and Catalunya have always been one of the biggest tourist attractions at the national and international level. Its beaches, traditions, landscapes, monuments, streets, people, gastronomy explains why Barcelona is the 12th most visited city in the world. Moreover, taking into account that Spain is the third most visited country of the world behind France and the United States, Catalonia is the most touristic region at the governmental level. In 2016, Catalonia received more than 18 million tourists. This equates to more than 25% of the travel business at the national level, receiving 5 more millions of visitors than the Canary Islands, positioned in the second place, and 3 times more than Spain's capital, Madrid. Nevertheless, as we have seen in previous cases, factors such as political instability, terror, chaos, or uncertainty highly affect tourism. The travelers always expect to have fun while visiting the city, meeting the culture, and especially feeling safe. The numerous manifestations, strikes, aggressions, police repression, and division of opinions have been such that Valencia has assigned Barcelona as the main cruise harbor in Spain. Considering the situation Catalonia is currently living, the sightseers seem to be finding different expectations to their initial ones. The Catalan independence has had such an important impact in the international media that Catalonia is being considered as a place to avoid, causing cancellations, unemployment, infrastructures being unutilized, and an important decrease of their touristic flow by a 4.7% since the 1st of October, the day of the referendum.
So, in order to conclude and bring this study to a conclusion, we can say that Catalonia's independence movement is something very recent, and the implications and consequences it will have in its economy and its societies remain to be seen, which makes this study even more interesting since it is based in assumptions and predictions. Political instability has slowed down the good investment moment that the Catalan economy was experiencing. As explained by several consulted law firms, since September, investment funds and foreign companies are requesting legal and financial reports on the impact of the rule governing the referendum. This has resulted in the fact that the firms and organizations consulted explained that some companies have decided to freeze investments in the territory and even in some cases have even ended up discarding them. Moreover, the hypothetical declaration of independence has clearly affected the different markets where the region of Catalonia is involved, such as the service industry and more especially the tourism industry as explained previously. However, the most affected markets were definitely the financial markets, where the main entities
of Banco Sabadell and CaixaBank saw their deposits reduced by a total amount of 9 million euros and experienced a fall in their stock market of around 5% each. Lastly, the most important economic and commercial partners of Catalonia are the EU member states. By remaining out of the EU, Catalonia enterprises would therefore have to pay special tariffs on imports, as well as customs tax, something they did not have to do previously. Transnational commerce will then become a lot more expensive in Catalonia, which in return will make them less attractive to the eyes of the rest of the European clients. Moreover, the cost of exporting would also considerably increase, which would negatively affect SMEs, small and medium enterprises, which represent the largest part of the firms in the community of Catalonia. In fact, while large corporations will easily develop strategic cooperation in order to continue operating, SMEs could have problems to overcome their new costs.
All in all, we cannot take these assumptions for granted, given that Catalonia is still part of Spain. The only thing we can say is that the 2017 referendum has destroyed the Catalan economy as we know it, with all 6 companies of the IBEX 35 leaving the region. We do not know what the future will look like in the long run, but as Keynes said, in the long run, we are all dead.